industrial face of American factories was changing. Artisans and craftsmen made way for assembly lines and mass production. Workers lost their individuality. Jobs were less and less satisfying, more and more tedious. As the pace of progress quickened, industry looked for new ways to reduce costs and improve productivity. Automation was the answer. Science and technology helped to make American workers the most productive in the world. Through the 1940s and 1950s, assembly line equipment became more and more sophisticated.
Here's how they put them together at the Highland Park plant. A car comes off the end of the line every 10 seconds. Dealers sell them in just about every town in the land.
And for the first time, a strange new concern, technological change, entered the reports of the Secretary of Labor.
We shall be paying too dearly for the prosperity of a few if machines become so efficient as to impoverish the many by keeping them unemployed.
Troubles? Yes. But
in those days, each car was built from the frame up on stationary wooden horses. There was a different crew for each car, and the same crew stayed on the car until it was finished. That meant duplication of effort and a lot of time wasted. So they tried moving the men from car to car. Each man had a special job to do, and as soon as he finished it, he moved on to the next car and did the same thing there. That was better, but it still took 12 and a half hours to assemble each Model T. Henry Ford watched it for a while, then he had an inspiration. Instead of moving the men past the cars, why not move the cars past the men? So on one hot August morning, they tried it that way. A husky young fellow put a rope over his shoulder, and Henry Ford called, "Let's go." And at that very moment, as the workmen began to fasten the parts onto the slowly moving car, the assembly line was born, a technique that was to revolutionize mass production all over the world. Once they found that the idea would work, they began to improve it, refine it. They rolled a chassis down a single line of track, pushing it from crew to crew. And the more expert they became at this new method, the faster the cars came off the assembly line, and the price of the Model T began to drop. They tried the same idea on all the various parts of the car and created what were called sub-assemblies. Each man on the line became a specialist. He did one thing, and he did it perfectly, then passed the work along to the next man. Minute by minute, production was winning the battle against wasted time and wasted effort. Parts were fed to the workmen by gravity slides so they wouldn't have to stop and wait for new parts. Then now they could regulate the flow of work and keep it moving at a constant. And the conveyor belts grew longer and more complex as they moved the work from place to place in the huge shops. They became fantastic masterpieces of planning and engineering. But the battle against wasted time and wasted effort was being won. The cars began coming off the assembly line at the rate of 1 every 40 seconds. And what Henry Ford had foreseen happened. Mass production and the assembly line drove the price of the Model T down from $850 to $300. Now everybody could have one.
Expensive cars were still made one at a time. But by 1912, a good many people could afford one of the thousands of low-priced automobiles pouring off the new assembly lines, pioneered by Olds and Ford. The concept of mass production spread from automobiles into other industries to change the tempo of the nation. Victory came the
millions of Model Ts, and the car had changed the country. Through standardization of parts and mass production, Ford had revolutionized industrial production. Rubber for tires came from Ford plantations in South America, and coal and steel were carried on Ford railroad cars to his factory in Detroit. The success of the Model T transformed his business into an empire. More than 13 million Model Ts had been sold by 1926. "I will build a motor car for the great multitudes," Henry Ford said, "so low in price that no man will be unable to own one and enjoy with his family hours of pleasures in God's great open spaces." By the 20s, the automobile had changed the daily routines of many Americans and given us new mobility. We not only used our cars to drive to work, we also used them to get away from it. Ford's idea of escape was to go camping, and his outdoor companions were among the most influential Americans of the day, like President Harding. Other regular campers were tire kings.